My friends, welcome to this episode of the Outdoor Gear Review. I hope you all are doing well. With fall being here and winter on the way, I figured that now is a great time to review some items that are going to make your cold weather adventures much more comfortable. Recently, I put up my updated Covia heater review, and now I want to focus on the rather infamous Mr. Buddy heater. This is the heater that most of you have seen before on my channel and other channels as well. As many of you know, I've been using a heater buddy for around 10 years now on my channel, and the product has been absolutely fantastic. For the first 5 years, I had a red heater buddy. Now, for the last 5 years, I've been using a green one. Here in a little bit, I'll talk about why I switched up the models, and I'll explain what happened to the red one. What you're looking at here is a Mr. Heater Buddy. This is the standard version of this system. We have a grab handle up at the top that does fold back. We have ridges here for your fingers. Here we have the on-off switch. This is also the electric igniter, and this is how you turn the stove from low to high. Here we have a steel grate that covers the heating element for the stove. Down at the bottom we have the igniter and also the pilot light. On this side of the stove here, this is where you attach the fuel canister. Now, I have a fuel filter on here, which I'll go ahead and take it off. And here in a minute, we'll talk about this. This fuel connection point is adjustable. It swings inward and also outwards. You will notice here with this stove, we have a recessed area. That is for these 1 pound cylinders. Basically, you screw this in, and basically the fuel fits into this recess here. Before going any further, let's take a second here and let's discuss the filter that's attached to the heater. The primary use of this filter is with hoses, specifically hoses that are designed to connect to the heater to 20-pound propane tanks. There are a number of hoses that are designed to work with this heater buddy, and basically with most of the hoses that are available, they leach oil into the fuel. That fuel filter collects that oil and prevents it from being burned, which prevents the heater from tearing up. Normally when I'm going out for a trip and it's not too cold and I know that I'm just going to run the heater for a few hours, I will use 1 pound propane tanks. But if I'm going out for a longer trip, or if it's really cold out, I will use 20-pound propane tanks. I will connect a hose to the propane tank, and then that hose to the filter to the heater. I've gotten to the point now where I simply do not remove the filter at all. I just leave it on there. I run it with hoses and also with the 1 pound cylinders. Once you have the fuel canister attached, or the hose, whatever it is that you want to do, it is time to fire up the Buddy heater. The overall operation of this is very, very simple. Basically, you want to start by igniting the pilot light. And you do that by pushing in and turning it over to pilot. You will push down on the dial and you will hear gas escaping through the heater. So basically you push down, you listen for the gas, and you click the igniter. And once you have it going, now you're ready to turn on the heater itself. Once you have the pilot light lit, you're now able to go to low or high. You push down and twist, and now it's going to low, and it is igniting. And that, my friends, is a Buddy heater, and that is how you use it. Let's take a second and let's go over some stats real quick. First things first, you need to know that there are 2 different versions of this heater. There's the Mr. Heater Buddy, which offers 4,000 BTUs on low, 9,000 BTUs on high. There is also a big Mr. Heater Buddy. It is larger in size, and it offers 4,000 BTUs on low, 18,000 BTUs on high. The company also offers an additional heater, which is very small. They call that the Little Buddy. The design of that heater is completely different than this one here, though. When it comes to the fuel type that these heaters will run off of, it's propane and propane only. Again, you can use 1 pound cylinders or 20 pound tanks. If you're going to use the 20 pound tank, you have to purchase an optional hose. When it comes to these hoses, there's some that require the use of filters and some that do not. I will talk more about this aspect in just a minute. As far as colors go with these heaters, you can find it in 2. There's a green version like you see here, and there's also a red version. As far as efficiency goes with these heaters, with a 1 pound cylinder, you're going to get around 6 hours on low, 3 hours on high. Concerning the size of the heater buddy, it is 14.2 inches wide, 15 inches tall, and it has a depth of around 9 inches. The weight of the heater itself without any fuel is around 10 pounds. And when it comes to the safety systems that are built into the heater itself, we have multiple. There's accidental tip over shutoff, and there's also a low oxygen sensor that will shut off the heater if low oxygen is detected. Both of these features really do work well. I'll talk more about that in just a minute. Lastly, everyone, everyone, when it comes to cost, you're looking at $130 for the retail price. At the time of filming on Amazon, this could be purchased for $78. As I mentioned at the beginning of this episode, I've been running heater buddies for around 10 years now, and I have used these heaters in all sorts of situations. Tent camping, SUV camping, in the back of a truck bed with a camper shell, off-grid cabin use, and even in emergency situations where the power went out. I should mention, everyone, that with all of my use, it has been around 6,000 feet in elevation and lower. And with that being said, everyone, let's begin with my pros and cons concerning the heater buddy, starting with the pros. So right off the bat, these stoves are very high quality. They're very well made. There's no issues as far as the fit and finish goes. Nothing about these heaters feel flimsy or anything like that. Also, at times I may call this a stove, I may call it a heater. I'm sure you all know what I mean, but these heaters are very easy to set up and also to operate. And at the same time, they are extremely reliable. Over the last 10 years, I've only had one issue, and that's why I went from a red one to a green one. And I'll talk about that issue in the cons section. With that being said though, one issue out of 10 years worth of use, that's impressive in my book. The next pro that I have for this heater here is the excellent heating capability. You have two different options, the high mode, the low mode, 9,000 BTUs, 4,000 BTUs. This gives you plenty of options as far as heat output goes. This is, without a doubt, a very powerful heater, and it does a great job of warming up larger spaces. Next, because the heater is so lightweight, it's very easy to take this with you anywhere that you want to go. You can easily carry it, you can easily put it in your vehicle, you can also easily get it out of your vehicle. In other words, it is very easy to transport. Next, we have to talk about the impressive safety systems. There's a low oxygen sensor and the knock-over detection. Both of these safety systems work very, very well, and I have seen both of them in action. If you move a heater too aggressively, too swiftly, it will shut off. And also, I did a test in my 4Runner. Basically, I fired up the heater, shut the doors, and came back, and it had shut itself off once low oxygen was detected. Without a doubt, the fuel efficiency of these heaters is very impressive. With a 1-pound cylinder, you're talking about 6 hours on low, 3 hours on high. And of course, if you want to go to a 20-pound cylinder, you're talking about lots and lots of runtime. And that sort of versatility is a huge pro for this heater. Talking about versatility, you can use this in so many different ways as far as like emergency use, supplemental heat, tent camping, vehicle camping, truck camping, so on and so forth. When it comes to the igniter, I've never had an issue with it not firing up. The igniter has always worked. Speaking of the heater always working, I've ran this down to roughly 0 degrees Fahrenheit and I've had no issues at all. No matter how cold it gets, these heaters seem to just keep on going. They're not affected. Going back to fuel for a second, the fuel for these heaters is very inexpensive. At the time of filming, a 1-pound propane cylinder runs around $5. Another huge pro for this heater is the fact that it's very quiet during its operation. Oftentimes, you'll hear nothing more than a slight shh as the fuel is being sent through the system and burned. On occasion though, it will make a farting sort of sound, but it's never too bad, it's not too obnoxious or anything like that. It's not going to keep you awake when it's doing that. In my book, this is very much a quiet operating heater. And lastly, as far as the pros go, I have to say this is a very durable product. I've had this heater here for over 5 years. I've never had a case on it. I grab it, I throw it in the truck, or I throw it in the 4Runner. I move it here, over there, I put it on the ground. No matter what I do to this heater, it just keeps on going, and that's very impressive. And that takes us over to the cons that I have for the heater buddy, starting with the hoses that are available for this system. I've mentioned already that initially I had a red heater buddy. With that heater, I ran 1-pound cylinders and also 20-pound tanks. When running with those 20-pound tanks, I would use an optional hose that did not require the use of a filter, but yet using that hose is what ultimately tore up my system. And that is why I have the green version here. This was a replacement for the red one that tore up because of the Mr. Buddy heater hose that I purchased and used. To elaborate on the hoses, some are made with a rubber compound that contains oil, and this oil leaches out into the fuel, and if you don't have a filter, it will get burned by the system and ultimately gunk it up and tear it up. Again, the hose that I purchased did not require the use of a filter, so I attached the propane cylinder directly to it, to the heater, and that ultimately caused a problem. Oil was still leaching out of that hose, and that's why I was given a replacement. I will say, everyone, using the 1-pound cylinders with the filter does look awkward, but it works perfectly fine. Because the fuel attachment port swings out, you can actually swing out the canister so that the stove sits evenly on the ground. It does not interfere with the operation of the stove at all. It looks a little weird, but for peace of mind's sake, I'm gonna do it. Something else that you need to know about these heaters, again, they run on propane. What happens when you burn propane? It releases H2O. In other words, it releases water into the atmosphere, water vapor. Because of that fact, if you're running this heater in a tent or something like that, a lot of condensation will form. So you do need to plan accordingly. All of that buildup moisture can be a problem in really cold conditions. So again, you have to plan accordingly. The last point that I'd like to make concerning the heater buddy is this. This is a very powerful heater, and the heat output can be too much for smaller spaces. I'm talking about smaller tents, smaller vehicles, and so on. If you're using a heater like this in those smaller spaces, you'll play the game of turning it on to get warm and then shutting it off because you're too hot. And then when you cool down, you fire it back up. Because of that aspect, you may want to consider a different type of heater for smaller spaces, smaller tents, and so on. I would highly recommend that you check out the Covia Cupid heater. It does a great job of filling in the area that this heater has issues with. Again, smaller spaces. At the same time, it really does pair well with this heater for supplemental heat. Let's say that you wake up in the morning, it's super cold, you want to get some heat going real fast, you can turn on the heater buddy, turn on the Cupid, and all of a sudden, you are toasty warm. And that, my friends, is why I've continued to use this heater for so long, and at the same time, why I've recommended this product for so long. I should mention this, everyone. When talking about running this inside of a tent, inside of a vehicle, inside of enclosed spaces, you do have to use this intelligently. You need to have airflow. It's a good idea to have a CO monitor. Common sense reigns supreme, right? This heater is completely safe to use in this type of environments, but again, you do have to have some common sense. Remember, you have to have airflow. Anyways, my friends, ultimately, when it comes to the heater buddy, I love my buddy. For years and years, I have said that. I love my buddy, and I certainly do. This is a fantastic product, a great heater, and now that it's getting cold, I'm having a great time using it. It's good to be back. Soon, everyone, we'll have some real snow coming, and I cannot wait. This is a very durable, compact, and versatile system that can be used for all sorts of applications, and I can easily recommend it. And everyone, with that being said, I am done. If you found this episode helpful, hit the thumbs up. It helps me, helps my channel a lot. I'm done talking, and that means it's your turn. Make sure to sound off in the comment sections. Share your thoughts. Share your opinions concerning the buddy heaters, or the heater buddies, whatever you want to call it. I call it my buddy, you know what I mean? My green buddy, I love you. Anyways, everyone, thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Take care, be well, strength and honor. Bye for now.